You will not believe the latest developments at the Uvalde school shooting situation. But let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
The first time ever any...
What are you people? We're Americans.
We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America, where we are not left-wing, we are not right-wing, we are just right. Honestly, though, we've got more developments in the situation that we've all been going through as a nation, and obviously Texas as a whole. Horrible situations all around for everybody involved. Obviously, prayers for all the praying people, vibes for all the vibe people. In the very near future, we're actually going to have, hey, shout out to Elio Mike. In the very near future, we're actually going to have I don't know if it's a gun debate. It's a gun panel. It's folks on either side of the aisle on this particular situation, and we're going to talk about it. The goal isn't to demonize anyone. It's not to, quote unquote, prove anybody wrong even per se. It's really more about understanding one another and trying to find some way to come to some solutions. Obviously, people have been very emotional about what's going on, and rightfully so, I believe. And you know what? To be honest with you, I'm glad that our country has some outrage about what happened. Right now, what it looks like is, and I got to tell you guys, I am staying around the perimeter of this issue because the more details, the more you really dig into the details and things of that nature, the less and less healthy of a person you're going to become. I would warn you guys, please think about that, because it's something to consider. Your mental health is really, really, really important. And unfortunately, many of us are not very good at managing it. Okay. So that's my appeal. Do what you will with that, dear listener. But having said that, guys, I'm gonna try to find a clip that's discussing the newest development here. The newest development here is not necessarily a good thing. So let's check it out. Why are mental health issues considered third rail? Rephrase third rail, Rich, because I'm not sure I'm following exactly with what you're saying. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to figure out what you mean by third rail. Okay. While he says that, I'm gonna play this video because this story is getting more and more strange and fishy, and it's a really horrible look for the police. So here we go. Check this out. Obviously, there's an investigation going on because all of us are horrified to find out that our police, apparently it sounds like they stayed in the hallway for, I don't know, 30 minutes or something like that, where there were 19 of them. So apparently they were hearing these kids get shot, and they did nothing. It's very hard for me to believe that that's true. It's hard for me to believe that they really sat there and heard those kids get shot and just stood out there. I can't wrap my mind around it. And I there's a big part of me that's like, there's got to be some detail or something that we're missing. But right now, that's what it looks like to me. And you know, like I said, I'm not really looking at the minutia of this situation because I want to protect my mental health. I don't want to hate anybody. I don't want to walk around full of rage and anger, and so I'm staying at the perimeter. As Mike P says, they didn't do nothing. They were evacuating kids throughout the rest of the school. Yeah, but Mike, you're hearing rifle rounds go off and you're hearing kids screaming. Why didn't they go inside the room? Like, that's great that they were evacuating other kids, but the kids that are most in the most imminent danger, that should be the priority. But they should have assaulted the room. They should have stacked up. And it is what it is. And you know what? If it's your turn to be the meat shield, man, you're the meat shield. You know that. But again, I don't know. I don't know if that's really what happened, because again, it's literally one of those things where I've heard it from multiple sources. I just don't believe that it happened like that, because I'm just mind blown that there's 19 people. Because I'll tell you what, if I was there and I heard that and I did nothing, I don't know how. I told Soraya, I said, one of those cops are going to end up taking their own life, because the PTSD, I don't know, man. I don't want them to take their own lives, but I just don't understand how you live with yourself if you sat out there and heard that shit. Anyway. So here we go. This is the latest development in the situation here, and it's kind of fishy, I'm not gonna lie. So here we go. You guys are gonna want to hear about this.
We've been talking about this for a while, 2 days now, since Friday. Pete Arredondo, he was the man in the hallway who made the decision not to send in the officers.
Okay, so Pete Arredondo, I guess, is the chief, and he was the one that called the play and told people not to go into the room. I'm sorry, but that's one of those situations, man, where Mike says, I guarantee you many of them were begging the commander to go in. Yeah, but in that situation, man, you just gotta do what needs to be done. If the commander told you to put a gun to your head and squeeze the trigger, would you do it? No, obviously you would defy that order. But this guy is out here putting a gun to kids' heads, and they're doing nothing because they're sitting there listening to the commander, who's giving them a solidified way to justify their cowardice. I mean, we didn't accept that in the Nuremberg trials with the Nazis when they said I was just following orders. We didn't accept that as a response. So, Mike is an actual LEO. He's done the work. He's done SRT stuff, etc., etc. So he's going to go and defend his brethren, which I'm glad, by the way, which honestly, I'm not even sure it was the right thing to do, release this guy's name. But I mean, I think it's going to be hard for him to hide out anyway. I think this guy is going to be in a lot of trouble. And I do think we still need police advocates, even though everybody knows I'm not a fan of police, and I'm working with legislators here to curtail some of the craziness. But there still does need to be laws that get enforced for the safety of marginalized people, because when you don't have a deterrent for that stuff, what happens normally is that the people in the minority and the majority get oppressed physically and otherwise by the majority. So you still need the institution of what we're calling policing or law enforcement. So we still need that. We can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. But this is a horrible situation. Okay, so here's the situation. Let's go.
40 minutes that would have saved. We've been talking about this for a while, 2 days now, since Friday. Pete Arredondo, he was the man in the hallway who made the decision not to send in the officers for 40 minutes that would have saved a number of those kids in Uvalde. Police Chief Pete, you might call him. He is the...
I just want to point out, this guy is obviously a person of color. He is obviously, if you look at his last name, he's got some sort of Hispanic background. The reason that is an important caveat is people were trying to go with the racial angle, and I understand the racial angle, especially when it comes to law enforcement. But again, guys, this was a brown person that made this decision. It wasn't racist white cops that were sitting outside going, "Yeah, fuck those people, let them die." That's not what was happening. This is not a racial issue. Okay, this is the guy that called the play. Now, again, this is not the main story, but it is something to highlight because I have no problem with calling out racism when there is obvious racism. But if there isn't obvious racism and we call it racism, then the real core issue about how we solve these problems as Americans is going to get completely obliterated because we're going to have the defensive white folks and then woke black folks and everybody in between, and it's going to become a whatever, okay? So I'm trying my hardest to make sure that we stay focused. This is the guy that called the play. He was browner than some of the folks that died in the school, so we can just dispense with the racial aspect of it. I agree with Derek. It's just plain cowardice, okay? But when you put the racial element in there, it's a distraction at this point, and it's designed to get us once again to get at each other's throats instead of looking at the real issue. So that's the best I could do with that. Hopefully that. that clears it up. Okay, we continue.
A police chief of the Uvalde Unified School District Police Department. And he was, well, missing in action, shall we say, or didn't want to do his job there on Tuesday of last week. And now this week we learned that he has stopped cooperating with the Texas Rangers.
This is huge. Guys, this is huge. He stopped cooperating with the Texas Rangers, who it's their job, their task, to investigate what was going on. And you were the quarterback there. You were the quarterback, and you're freezing out the investigators. Now look, if you lawyer up, and I'm sure there's a police union, whatever, he's going to lawyer up. Well, then say you can speak to my attorney, or I'll talk to you with my attorney. But this guy is completely avoiding these people. These guys are avoiding these folks. Like this guy, he's avoiding accountability. He's avoiding accountability because I think he knows. I mean, anybody in the game knows. Mike knows this was completely the wrong call. All the blame is going to fall on him. But quite frankly, I echo a lot of the sentiments of my folks in the chat. I don't give a fuck what the order was. Those 19 police officers, if they believed that it was their son in there or their daughter in there, they would have said, "Man, fuck you and your fucking order, bro." But it wasn't their kids. And look, if you saw the previous video I shot on this, I didn't use that as a time to go after police. I didn't. I said, look, they're not trained for this, and they're not disposed to go and lay down their lives for people. So I'm not saying this because I'm trying to use this as an excuse to beat up cops. But now here we are, and you're not talking to the investigator. How do you get to do that, by the way? Like, if I was involved in a situation like this, I wouldn't be able to freeze out the freaking Texas Rangers. They'd show up at my house. They wouldn't be leaking stuff to the media. But again, you got police unions and things like that, so he can play those games. But this shit right here is unconscionable, man. If you're not man enough to go in there, and if you were not man enough to even send your boys and your girls in there, at least be man enough to stand up like a man and look those Rangers in the eye and say why you called that play. But, he's not, it's obvious he's not going to demonstrate the intestinal fortitude and character necessary to do that, because it takes a real man to admit those kinds of situations. And quite frankly, I think that's very indicative. It's very, very indicative of policing in our country. We continue.
He is MIA for any kind of interviews as they continue their investigation into Pete's performance during the school shooting in Uvalde. There's a big question here in terms of, as someone makes that order to stand outside the classrooms rather than to run in. Pete had all of the training, as did his officers. Not only that, the Uvalde School District had been through so many of their training sessions on what to do with an active shooter. And yet, after all of this, the wrong decisions were made. Robert Sherman been following this as well from Uvalde with more. Hi, Robert.
Hey there, Leland and Texas DPS.
I want to show you guys something. It was a point I made earlier, and I just think it's an important point that you have to consider. Okay, so check this out. Mike probably knows about this. This is Dakota Meyer. Dakota Meyer, Marine Corps guy. The Marines got ambushed, and his friends were basically stuck. They were in an APC, I'm pretty sure, and they were pretty much in an L-shaped ambush type situation, and there was no way for them to get out. And so they were radioing for help. They're like, we're dying out here. We're sitting ducks. We're radioing for help. Dakota goes to command and says, hey, Johnny's over there. I'm going to take a couple guys. We're going to go. They said, absolutely not. You're not cleared to go. You're not cleared to go. So Dakota stands down the first time. Then his friend is calling him a lot more desperate. Hey, man, is there anything you could do? He calls again, and they said, no, Dakota, you can't go. So Dakota and his buddy loaded up. I think he jumped on, I think it was one of those technicals, Mike. You know those little Jeeps, and then you outfit the... So he ran in there directly into the teeth of the bullets. Him and this other guy went directly into the teeth of the bullets to rescue those guys. Unfortunately, when he got there, they were dead. He ended up getting the Medal of Honor, but he almost blew himself away because he felt like such a failure because he obeyed the order the first time. He said, if I would have disobeyed on the first round, maybe I'd have got to him, which is completely ridiculous. It was a ridiculous miracle that he even made it there alive in the first fucking place. But the reason I'm bringing up that story, guys, is because these are Marines. Marines, when they sign, if you join the Marines, you want to fight. Okay? And the point is, these Marines obeyed those orders. They didn't want to go in there and go into their certain death. So my point is, police, think about this, guys. There's a reason we have things like the Medal of Honor. It is highly uncommon that people will go into certain death for people that are not their immediate family. That's uncommon. So my point is to say, I understand why those folks did it. Now, again, I'm going to have real definitive proof that they were hearing those kids get shot and did nothing. I'm going to have proof of that because I can't believe that. Something happened over there, but I can't believe that. So anyway, Dakota gets his Medal of Honor. I'm just showing you guys how rare it is for people to do that. And if we're depending on law enforcement, I'm sorry. A guy like Elio Mike or something, I believe, would go in. But the guy's, he's one in a million, obviously. Okay, so here's this guy, and I keep interrupting. Let's go.
Very carefully clarifying tonight that despite some other reports that had emerged that the whole school district's police force and the Uvalde police force were not cooperating, they say it is just this one person, Pete Arredondo, who has not returned.
Yeah, that's what I heard too when they initially broke the story. Was that there was none of the police were cooperating, and this guy says no, it's actually just the chief. Because you know what's happening? They talked to all those 19 officers, and they said, how come you didn't go in? And they pointed at him. They pointed at him. So then they're coming back. They're like, yo, we talked to those 19 people. What happened? No, crunch, saran wrap. I can't hear you. And then he hung up the phone. That's pretty much it. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Several requests from the Texas Rangers. That's the investigative side of Texas's law enforcement division. That is the sentiment that we are hearing down here, Leland, is that there is a lot of people who are upset. They are frustrated that they're not getting answers. But that decision was ultimately made, according to Texas DPS, by Pete Arredondo to not send and to not breach the door that 18-year-old gunman was hiding behind, and instead to wait for backup. As we've been hearing for the last couple of days, Texas DPS says that was the wrong decision. Listen to this.
can't believe that. I can't believe that. I just can't believe it.
There were children in that classroom that were at risk, and it was, in fact, still an active shooter situation.
At risk? I heard one of the calls, and it was this little girl saying, I'm shot. And you're telling me there were officers outside that building when that happened to that girl? I don't believe that. I just have a really hard time believing that, man. But I'll tell you what, guys. If no heads roll in this situation, if you thought our country was crazy, there's a lot of distrust in these institutions. But a lot of the distrust has usually been around racial lines. But this whole thing has superseded race for a lot of us. And again, I feel how I feel about police. I'm a black man in America, and I have black sons. But if you have an entire nation of people who do not believe that these people, these police officers who have been, vested with all this divine power to a degree to determine life and death for people. This happened on the stage of our nation. And you're telling me that you guys sat there and let that happen, and now the American people are supposed to trust you? As I said yesterday, this whole Joe Biden thing, he's talking about, why do you need an AR-15? Why do you need a weapon with such a high mortality capability? It's in case, Joe, you know what these women are thinking? Well, in the event that my kid is trapped in a classroom and the cops won't help, I'm going to strap up with my AR-15 and I'm showing up at school. Can you imagine what is about to befall our country?
And not a barricaded subject. Of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that.
And as it's so happens.
Yeah, it's the wrong decision. Yeah, and Dwayne, I'm sorry, but you're right. These are the same cops who just ran drills for this exact scenario 7 days prior. I got all my conspiracy theorist friends, blah, blah, blah. You drilled on this. And I looked at their doctrine. Their doctrine specifically states, even if you're the sole officer, you're supposed to go and make a play. That little white lady. You had that crazy guy, the black dude who was shooting his AR-15 into the crowd. That little white lady took out her little Smith & Wesson, and it's not funny, but this is where we are. This is where we're at right now. We're citizens now. This is not vigilante justice. This is just, we're in the fucking Wild West, man, because you cops are out here shooting. They just shot an unarmed pregnant black woman yesterday. And no, I'm not covering the story because I'm really serious about my mental health and I don't want to hate people. So I don't cover those stories on this channel, guys. I'm not doing it. But here we go. In the last 7 days, we've got cops that supposedly stood by and heard these kids get killed. Then you've got a cop that shot a pregnant woman in the 5 times. She had her hands up, no weapon on her. And then on top of that, we got to rely on this little white lady with her little handgun who took out a guy with an AR. This has been a bad week for policing. Very bad week. Very bad week.
Pete Arredondo was supposed to be sworn in to the Uvalde City Council today during a city council meeting. That meeting has since been postponed because this is the first day of funerals for some of those victims. The mayor of Uvalde clarifying today that at this point, Pete Arredondo has not been charged with anything or anything of the kind. He was duly elected to the city council. The seat is his if he still wants it. It is worth noting, though, Leland, being here on the ground, ever since that statement was made by Texas DPS that this was the wrong decision and it was inexcusable, we have seen a seismic shift here in terms of the perspective towards law enforcement. A lot of people down here want accountability. Important to remember, though, Leland, facts in this story and this investigation have been changing almost on a day-to-day basis.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true. What's up, Sadie? That's very, very true. The facts keep changing on this situation. That's another very curious situation here. It seems like their police department is more worried about the PR aspect than actually addressing the issue, solving it, and getting in front of people, taking some accountability and saying, these are the exact steps we're taking. And I'm telling you, we need a new psychological battery for people who enter the police force. I got a family member, you would not believe the rigmarole he had to go through and everything to get to where he is. And, you know, I mean, it's a very serious outfit for, obviously. If you guys know me personally, you know what I'm talking about. But it just seems to me that that's the priority for the Uvalde police is blame shifting, throwing people under the bus. And look, this guy's the chief, so he should get the majority of the blame. But I'm sorry, those 19 officers, I don't give a fuck what the order was. And I'm saying this for full disclosure, guys. These stories keep evolving, so I'm holding on. Right now, I do not believe they sat there and heard those kids dying. I don't believe that. I don't believe that happened. Not like that. I just can't believe it happened. But no matter how it happened, you guys didn't go in there and help those kids. And yeah, your chief is a bastard and do whatever with him. But all 19 of those officers need to have some accountability, man. I heard the guy that actually went and fucking did the job was a father who had a kid in the school, so he goes in there, evacuates his kid, and then he goes in there and he sent that boy to the Ein Sof. God rest his soul. One guy. Maybe that one guy was safe because homeboy ran out of bullets. I don't know. I don't know.
Day being the consummate example. We had heard in the past that the gunman entered through a door that was left locked. Then we were told that the door was propped open by a teacher. Now we've been told again today that the door was closed. It was supposed to lock, but it did not. We did speak with...
Oh, okay. So, okay. You got to help me with this. Didn't we all hear one of the chiefs, whatever said, oh, well, the teacher left the door locked, like subliminally blaming the teacher. The teacher left the door open. She put a rock or something in the door or whatever, and that's how the guy got in. Now we're finding out at 11:54. Nope. That's actually not true. The door is actually closed. It was supposed to lock. It didn't close, but the teacher absolutely had the door closed. You guys told us that somebody had rigged the door open. The story keeps changing all the time. It's almost like you guys are making shit up as you go along, or you guys haven't been able to hook up together and get your stories all straight. You want to put this, and obviously you guys know this, right? The guy says, "Oh, the back door was open. It was held. There was a teacher that held the door open," and you want us to put it together and say, "What the fuck is wrong with that teacher? Why'd she do that?" So that now we're focusing on this teacher's mistake instead of what you guys did, and now we find out, actually, no, the teacher had actually closed the fucking door. So why are you telling us that she propped it open? Very good question here goes. What is the punishment for lying in a criminal investigation? Very, 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 very good question. Very good question. And the scripture said you must have a just hin and an honest ephah, which means you gotta treat everybody equally in law and in judgment. So if me and my buddy Here Goes, we go to rob a bank. And then we came up with all these silly ass lies. Here goes says, well, I was in Yugoslavia. And the officer says, there's no such thing as Yugoslavia. What the fuck are you talking about? And then I go, oh, no, actually, he was in California. Those cops would put both of us behind bars, and they would jam me up in the interrogation room and tell me, we know that you guys are full of shit. So we don't know. Maybe that's happening behind closed doors, but this is another angle that all of us are going to be looking for. Your guys' story continuously changes all the time about this issue. That's a very good question. Very good question. Now, I will say for balance, extremely complex, extremely dynamic situation. Okay? I mean, think about all the staging. You've got a bunch of angry, scared, terrified parents that are losing their minds. These are people claiming to be parents. You don't know everybody. You don't know if there's an accomplice in the group. Guys, this is standard practice with hostage rescue. A lot of times, if you even the hostage will be in bars. Will get handcuffs. Depending on the outfit and the group or whatever, and the doctrine and the philosophy, sometimes they'll even handcuff the innocent people because we have to vet you and make sure that you're not some accomplice, yada, yada, yada. My point is, it was a very complex situation, so I can understand variations in the story. My problem is that was said with a lot of confidence, and in my mind, it was used to put the culpability on the teacher. That's what I feel. And that's my problem. That's my issue with that particular moment. But yeah, now we're hearing that the teacher actually did do the right thing, what she was supposed to do.
Teacher who claims that she was the one who closed that door. Take a listen to her recounting of the events.
So they turned around and he's got a gun. So I ran back. Into my building. I still had the rock on the door. So I opened the door, kicked the rock, and then locked it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I actually believe her. Texas is very hot and muggy. It's fucking miserable. Sometimes you open the door so there'd be a nice little breeze in and out, whatever, in the hall, maybe the hallways, because there's probably AC in the classroom, but it's a small town. Maybe there is an AC in the hallway, so you prop the door open so you get a nice little wind surge, whatever. But when she heard there was an active shooter, now watch this. This woman heard there is an active shooter. What did she do? She jumped in her car and got the fuck out of Dodge. Nope. She said, holy shit, there's a rock back there. Jammed the door open. I'm going to go down in there and do that to protect our kids. This woman showed more bravery than the majority of your crew, officer. And then she gets rewarded for that nobility by you throwing her under the bus and subliminally blaming her for this situation. Ah, boy.
And we are, of course, not sharing that teacher's name for her own safety. Of course, there has been a lot of criticism and things of that nature flying down here. But it just goes to show, Leland, when it comes to this investigation, the facts keep changing every single day that this investigation unfolds. Once again, we still have more questions than answers. Leland?
Yeah, and unfortunately, answers in these situations do not come at the speed of cable news. Robert Sherman in Uvalde, despite billions in training, as we've been reporting, police objectively failed in Uvalde.
Ian, I'm not sure that the school has cameras. Like I said, guys, I'm not really intimate with the details on this story like I usually am with stories because I take the boys and the girls out I was telling Sadie this last night. I take the kids out every day. There's an elementary school here. And we were there, it was 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. And we had come early and school was still in session, but they still let us play or whatever. They shouldn't, now that I think about it. Man, those kids were so small in that elementary school, bro. They were so small, and one of them, the backpack was bigger than him, and He's walking around with his backpack. I'm like, what the hell is this little 9-year-old kid doing with this giant backpack? What are you guys teaching these kids? And there were these teachers out there, and they didn't know me or any of the, so they were keeping a watchful eye on me because it's their kids are there. So that they made sure they weren't going to mess with us in the court, but they made sure to watch and all that. It wasn't nasty energy. It was good energy. It was just, hey, these are our kids. And, man, kids that age, those kids, man, that age got blown away and we weren't there to protect them, man. That's, I got a lot of kids, I'm a dad. My son, I'm just going to vent here, guys. My youngest son, he wakes up in the middle of the night, 4 or 5 o'clock at night. I mean, he'll just cry and then he'll go back to bed. And I was listening to him crying last night, and I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem with that. Sori's she has problems with it. He was crying, and I was just thinking to myself, like, yo, what if he was in a school and he's crying for me to protect him? And I wasn't there to protect him. And they're crying and crying for their parents and the cops. And nobody came to protect them. Ah, man. Sorry, guys. It's going off the rails. I'm all over the place, but that was hard. It was only 2 minutes, My kid, he was crying only for 2 minutes, and he got bored and went back to bed. And we've got the thing, you can't go get him, but I so badly wanted to get to him, man, because I was just. All right, enough of that. We continue.
Of course, the school had doors that were supposed to lock. The teachers had training. They had visitor logs. But all of these failures aren't just specific to Uvalde. What does this mean for your kids, for kids around the country? Police incident commanders will show up. Some of them may be like Pete. Some of them hopefully are a lot braver and more decisive than Police Chief Pete. But they're going to be in combat for the first time, oftentimes, trying to make decisions. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, formerly of the National Security Council, decorated Marine veteran, also now author of Tragic Consequences, The Price America is Paying for Rejecting God and How to Reclaim It, is with us now. Good to see you, sir. I appreciate it. Are we asking too much of a police officer in a police department who probably the week before their big thing had been a couple of kids smoking dope behind the scoreboard, and now all of a sudden they're in a hallway and a guy shooting at them with an AR-15, and they're trying to make these decisions that even veteran operators in Iraq sometimes got wrong?
Look, human beings are human beings, Leland. It's one of the things that I notice about life. When things go wrong, it's very rarely is it malevolence, it's incompetence, it's it's misfeasance. You've got a lot of that happened in this thing. It's probably going to take weeks to undo exactly what happened. The investigation will proceed. They'll get answers. But the bottom line of it is what we ought to be doing right now is coming up with measures that are going to be effective in making sure that our most precious resource, the children of America, are protected in schools as well as we protect banks and airports and jewelry stores and government buildings all over the country. Right, we ought to be doing those things right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we're going to solve the active shooter situation. Like I said, at least can we You know what's interesting to me about my Republican friends is they're saying this is not a gun problem, it's a mental health problem. Okay. I can go with that. Are you willing to give us universal mental health? Can we universalize that? I know we don't want Medicare for all because that's socialism. But since you guys are saying, and I think you're right, that this is not necessarily a gun issue but a mental health issue, can we? Are we going to support now at least universal mental health, so that if a person's bipolar or has any schizoaffective issues, apparently this kid murdered a cat and fucking put the cat in his book bag. You think maybe that kid needs like a bunch of counseling and a bunch of monitoring and a bunch of meds? Now, I know guy does something like this, he's an absolute demon. We're supposed to spit on his grave. But you can't tell me this kid wasn't calling out for help. You don't kill a fucking cat and take the cat to school with you in your fucking backpack if you're not crying out for some sort of help. But maybe Mr. Ramos's family is not very well to do, and maybe they didn't have access to all the mental health resources that were necessary to keep this kid alive. So that's one aspect of it. But the other aspect for me is we got to do a different psych battery for these cops. We've got to raise the standards. I think I was never on the defund the police train, but it's one of those situations where, like, when you look at things like the military and things of that nature, right, where special operators are extremely rare, but they're extremely effective in their force multipliers, right? I would say to myself, okay, let's trim off 15% of our force and it needs to become harder and harder to become a police officer is what I'm getting at. It should be extremely difficult to become a police officer, or more difficult than it currently is. I just think that there needs to be some sort of, obviously not a Buds type situation, or a Robin Sage or anything like that. You don't need to do that, but there's got to be something else here, because this is a real problem, right? Not only this issue, but the trigger happy police who I don't believe are saying, fuck these niggers, I'm going to kill them. It's just fear. That's what it seems like to me. So he's got a bunch of mentally unstable people who are terrified of their own shadow, and then you give them a lethal weapon. That's something that I think needs to be looked at. We continue.
Don't we have that, though?
No.
We've got school resource officers.
No.
We've got one way in and one way out.
Leland, up until Black Lives Matter started deciding that we needed to defund the police, there was a program heading in the right direction that stopped in its tracks. It's
almost like Jimmy Dore has a conspiracy theory about. I'm pretty sure that Jimmy. I'll ask him next time I talk to him. I'm pretty sure Jimmy believes that the defund the police thing was a COINTELPRO type of situation where the bad guys infiltrated BLM and then came up with this ridiculous idea, and everybody went with it, and it completely overshadowed the BLM movement and all the rest of it. But considering that the leaders of BLM converted all that pain of black people in America and then the white folks that tried to support us, they converted all that pain into millions of dollars so they can live high on the hog while the rest of us. Now they got a bunch of white neighbors. Hey, they love black people so much they started BLM, and then once they got their money they got the fuck out the hood, and now they live around a bunch of white people. Shout out to BLM. Y'all messy as fuck. All right, we continue. Holy shit. Oh my God, help us, Lord, help us. We continue.
I have schools that used to have armed police officers, as every school ought to have. We had schools in America who do have armed school teachers who have been, and staff members who have been properly trained. What I would suggest is we go back to those kinds of measures and do it for every single school in America. All you need is money. And we've got money that's been allocated. No, I'm serious.
I
decision
agree,
being made by people at the state and local level.
You think about how it was supposed to work. This is the head of the Texas Department of Public Safety explaining that. Take a listen.
We're listening.
Texas embraces active shooter training, active shooter certification, and that doctrine requires officers, we don't care what agency you're from, you don't have to have a leader on the scene. Every officer lines up, stacks up, goes and finds where those rounds are being fired at, and keeps shooting until the subject is dead, period.
Is that a...
I just don't understand why he would say that when that's not what happened. Why would you say that? The boys are going to go and line up, stack up, blah, 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 meet shield, cover the corners, yada, yada, yada. Shoot the shooters, don't shoot the no-shoots. That's all great. We all know. But that's not what happened. That's not what they did. The American people would forgive you, officer, if you went in there guns blazing and you hit a kid. The American people would forgive you. And by all intents and purposes, that might have probably happened. They released a statement a couple days ago. It says all the people that were killed by the Ramos kid, which is a very curious statement. I mean, all of us assume that. So why come out and say that? But anyway, we would have forgiven them if they went in there and hit a kid, whatever. Then you can say we need better training, right? If you botch the entry, or you hit one of the folks that you were trying to rescue, then you could say, okay, that's a training issue. And I'm pretty certain the American people would forgive that. But that's not what you guys did. And the fact that you embraced active shooter drills and scenarios or whatever, but again, guys, an active shooter drill is not the same all the time. If the guy is outside in a parking lot, then the engagement profile is going to be different. If the guy's inside of a Walmart, the engagement profile is different. If he's in a classroom, it's different. There's so many factors. So when they said we embraced active shooter and we were trained for this, what exact scenario was it? Okay? And how did you test for retention of information or retention of training, right? Because you train, the guy does it in front of the teacher or whatever, but then you come back a week later, can you still be proficient at it? Did you retain the training? I want to know if all that stuff was happening, officer. I just think this guy was him doing all this doesn't do anything for me. Like, you guys embracing all that stuff makes it worse.
Reasonable expectation.
Leland, that's the last line of defense is at the point of.
Yes, Mike. Yes, but the engagement profile for a school is different from a parking lot, is different from a mall, is different from a house, right? So what exactly were the drills that they were doing? That's my question. Vin, why would these people advocate to arm teachers? That seems like a way worse idea. Most shooters are going to be from the school and the teacher's going to know them. Why should a teacher have to do it? I agree. I agree. I look, if you want to arm these teachers and tell them that they got to be John Rambo, you better give them people a raise. You better give that teacher a raise. Because what we're saying is our police were so incompetent and cowardly, God forgive me, that we need to now get Miss Higglebaum. So there's Miss Higglebaum with her science book, her little apple, that little Susie gave her, and her fucking Sig Sauer. She's supposed to be there, and she's supposed to be everything, and we're supposed to pay her jack shit. Exactly, Mike. Once he's locked in the classroom, the active shooter diamond formation no longer works. Correct. That's my point. That's what I'm saying. They needed to switch to a room assault plan. I agree, but were they trained on that? That's my question. That's what I'm saying. Rules are different. The strategy is different. The doctrine is different, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, and the reason I'm asking that question, that minute detail, is because this is something where we can say, okay, these guys were not confident because this is not what they went over in training. One of the worst things that can happen is to believe that your training is going to replicate life. I had a guy tell me one time, I trained through something. I did very, very well. I was very proud of myself. I was top of the team in that particular whatever. And he pulled me aside and he said to me, "Oh, you think that's really going to happen like that?" And then he quoted Mike Tyson. He says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. But what happens is when you do like this little, I mean, how much time did they spend? Did you do like a day? Did you do like a week retreat or whatever? And now these cops are walking around thinking, oh, okay, I got CQB. We got it figured out. But to me, what happened was they engaged the way they were trained. The situation got dynamic on them, and they were not able to develop the situation as it was unfolding. So that to me is a training issue to a degree. Exactly. They didn't have the breaching gear. Okay, this is what I mean. So that's one takeaway is we can give these guys more training on CQB as much as possible. I just think there should be just continuous beefing up and training for these folks, which means we need to channel more capital to them, right? Because that shit is expensive. And the other thing too is they need to universalize the doctrine. How do I know that your engagement doctrine in Texas is the same engagement doctrine as Tennessee? And if there are variations, why? Because we're talking about principles. But again, we're getting into the weeds here. But dear listener, those are conversations that we need to start hearing from our leadership here. Saying I'm sorry, saying we'll do better next time, yada, yada, yada. Don't listen to that shit. You want somebody to get in front of you and say, okay, this is the issue. We isolated the problem. Okay, the problem was these guys were terrified, and the reason they were terrified was because they were trained on the diamond shit. The diamond shit got dynamic. Okay, so now we're going to train them on this. Okay, that's good. That's good. Ragging the cops might be emotionally satisfying. Ragging on Ramos might be emotionally satisfying. But how does this prevent another situation? So hopefully these officers can, and policing in America, I think we need a more stringent entry, a more stringent gateway to entry, and I think there needs to be consistent up and cross training. And inshallah, we'll be in good shape after that, inshallah.
Engagement with the adversary. What we ought to be doing is in 2002, the Secret Service and the Department of Education put out the long report. The name of it is the 2002 Secret Service Department of Education Report on Threat Assessment in Schools, a guide to managing threatening situations and to creating safe school climates. It's way too long. Should have been just how to get safe schools. Here's how you get safe schools.
Agree.
You do it the same way we do in the military. You do a defense in depth. You do an assessment of what the target is. It's a school. It's the building down the street that says gun-free zone on it. It's a natural target for crazies like we saw in this little town in Texas. Number two, you do intelligence on the threat. Every one of these guys, in the back end of it, they find out he's been up on social media, he's been telling people, he's been taking pictures. There's something going on. That's the intelligence part of it. Number three, you intercept the person before they get to the target. And number four, the point defense is the last step. You've got all kinds of things that we should be doing in every school in America. When I was the head of the NRA, when I was president of the NRA board, okay, I wanted to push the program that we started back in 2012 called School Shield. That School Shield was based on that same Secret Service DOE directive. If we were doing those things then, that would not have happened in this school. And we need to do it. And one other caveat, there ought to be veterans of the armed forces of the United States, of which there are hundreds of thousands, put to work in every school in America to be mentors, to be leaders, to be counselors, and to have a sense of situational awareness as to what's going on around them. Why don't we do it?
Well,
I am not so sure that is a bad idea. Obviously, the glaring issue is if you're a former combat, especially if you've engaged in combat, the likelihood of having PTSD or some other disqualifying mental malady is extremely high. So again, it sounds good on paper. Hey, they've been in combat before. They've been in actual war zones, so they'll be more acclimated to that kind of energy, and they'll be able to know how to think with a clear head. And I believe, mental health issues or not, I believe every combat veteran would have went in there by themselves with a fork, a spoon. I believe that. And so there is a positive there. But the other side of that, though, is what if this guy's has an episode? PTSD is a real thing, and a lot of combat vets refuse to talk about it because everybody knows that's pretty much the end of your career. Or if you're in certain outfits, you can't say shit about anything that's bothering you because, we're a pack of wolves and we eat the weak and all this other shit. So I'm not sure. Again, that there would have to be an extremely high bar of entry. But I'll tell you, not only if this went in a perfect fashion that Ollie's talking about, that would warm my heart so much because a lot of these guys are looking for their next mission. And, telling a guy, well, your next mission is to stay alive and to build a family and a home and all that. That's your next mission. Like, I get it. I understand that. And it's probably saved a couple vets. But if you could get them into a situation where they're a guardian for a school full of kids, against the contingency of an active shooter, I absolutely believe that would do so much good for our guys when they come back. It would do so much good because a lot of these guys, again, think about the psych profile of a guy that signs up with a combat MOS, right? And then actually, close the deal. That guy is not going to stand outside while them kids are getting shot. So, I think it's got potentialities to be a really cool idea. And I think it would give so much hope to our vets. And I think if we do it right, the kids will be okay. But I just don't know if the risk factor on the mental health side for those guys is, I don't know how you square that circle. But I think it's a good idea to a degree.
Why don't we do it? Let the politicians argue
a lot
about the Second Amendment.
And that's where I'm getting to you.
They will treat everything as a threat, and innocent people will get hurt. A middle school isn't Kandahar. Yeah, I don't believe that about the guys I know. The guys that I know are extremely disciplined, very, very disciplined. Trigger discipline, whatever. And aside from that, I don't believe combat vets are like these like robots that, they're in combat now, so they're always on the kill switch and they're ready to kill everybody. Obviously, Tasco, it's kind of nerve-wracking to be like, what? You okay? I see risks both ways in this, to be honest with you. Like I said, I see risks both ways, but I don't see another solution. So I brought this up to my crew yesterday in Middle America on the Facebook page and got some really interesting responses. All right, guys, it's almost over.
NRA obviously is going to have a lot to say coming up for whatever vote is up now. Should the NRA, should gun owners overall worry that if they reject things like closing the background check loophole, eventually there's going to be a real anger in America that's going to shift almost to like what we're seeing in Canada now, where you're going to get some incredibly restrictive proposal?
My hope and my prayer is that we're not going to see this.
Yeah, I'm going to cover the Canada thing. I think Justin Trudeau just gave the Republicans an early Christmas present. I think, guys, I'm telling you, we talked about this yesterday. The surge that the Democrats were hoping for with the Roe v. Wade stuff is going to get completely neutralized if Joe Biden tries to drive some sort of gun ban. I'm telling you that right now. All of that angst and all the other shit, you haven't seen angst yet. So I think Justin Trudeau just gave the Republicans a wonderful Christmas present.
Second Amendment infringed. That's the wording. Shall not be infringed in the Second Amendment. Number two, I would like to think that somebody is smart enough to start doing, because that debate's going to go on for weeks, months.
Yeah,
maybe even
I'm with
years.
Sadie on this. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm assuming this is about the combat vets in school. In my family, relatives who have been in urban warfare and terrorist attacks, they would have to be retrained for firearm security. In the Army and Special Ops, the sound of cars or fireworks puts them on high alert. Many vets are in a similar situation. Yeah, you mean banned 9mm high caliber guns. Yeah, I don't need my president to be a weapons sergeant, but when you're having these conversations, you got to be completely crisp and you got to be wise and circumspect. And I think honestly, aside from that last thing, I think Biden's done and maybe I'm just saying that because the standards are so low for him, but I thought he's doing better than I thought he would. Let's say it that way. Pagan Dead 666. I appreciate it. Who is a better rapper, Eazy-E or Eminem? Is that really a question? Eazy-E's not really a rapper, man. Cube was writing all the Eazy-E shit. He ain't no rapper. I'm a better rapper than Eazy-E. Really, I am. You'll see in a couple days. We're shooting a video. We're clipping it and editing it soon. You'll see I'm a better rapper than Eazy-E. That's an easy question. All right, we continue.
I would like to think there's somebody smart enough in America to say, you know what, while they're arguing about what's going to be done and what isn't going to be done, and I'm not going to support infringing on the Second Amendment. I don't think it needs it. I don't think it will work. Look at criminals are not going to.
There it is, guys. You knew it was coming. I'm sorry. I just, all right. There's 45 seconds.
Law. Criminals are not going to turn in their firearms, even if it's an M14 or an M16 or an AR, whatever.
They won't turn in handguns in Chicago, so there's no reason to think they'll turn that. Colonel, we got to run. Unfortunately, we got backed up with the breaking news off the top, but we're looking forward to seeing you again, sir.
Let me just ask. 15% off if you go to.
Yeah, I don't care about your book, man. No disrespect to the homie. All right. Well, I'm assuming that in the next 24 to 48, homeboy is going to be advised by his legal counsel that he's got to turn himself in and answer those questions and have those conversations. Obviously, it's not something you're going to be able to dodge forever, and we Americans are not going to let this go. I'm telling you, I've been, there's a lot of shootings or whatever, but this one is different, man. This one is different. This is one where we're not going to let this fucking go. There's going to be I'll tell you this. I guarantee you there's going to be accountability. I guarantee you that. And it would be better, as Paul says in the scripture, if we judged ourselves, we wouldn't be judged along with the world. It's better that an institution judges itself than external forces, if you know what I'm saying, do the judgment. But believe you me, dear listener, believe you me, I want this guy's head to roll, and I want real dramatic statements, because if not, we're talking about anarchy. I'm talking about the bad side of anarchy. 400 million guns in this country, and now our law enforcement, we have zero confidence in. And if there is no accountability, I am telling you, we're fucked royally. So I want this guy's head for the betterment of the entire country, because it's going to get super fucking ugly if something doesn't happen significantly, because like I said, we're not letting this go. It doesn't matter what community you're in, pro-life, pro-choice, LGBTQIA, blah, 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 racist, KKK, well, everybody is pissed off about this shit, and it is so heinous and egregious now that there's a story floating around that these cops heard those kids get blasted away, and I'm saying it's a story because I don't believe it, but people aren't going to let this go. They're not going to let this go. This one is different. They're not going to let it go. All right. I'm gonna leave you guys with this. Like I always say, don't be paranoid, but please be diligent when you're out there. Please be diligent. Be aware of your surroundings. I used to go to Walmart, put my headphones in, listen to all my metal, blah, blah, blah. I got my pregnant wife with me, like I'm on heads on a swivel. So, I'm not going to tell you go up and get yourself go stock up and all that on weaponry. I'm not going to tell you to do that. But please be aware of your surroundings, and please also have your kids be aware of their surroundings. Not fear-mongering, just aware. Because we don't have anything else. Here we are. Michelle, I actually didn't get to show her the picture yet because, I was kind of messed up after that discussion. You hesitated and got scared. Now, admit it, step down. Now I'm not going to go and tell you guys all of Raul's business, but I know for a fact that Raul would have went in there. I know that for a fact. I'd put my kid's life on it. He would have went in there. He's not saying that. I'm saying that. So I never say this, but for all the officers like Mike in Raul, for all the officers who are willing to actually bite that bullet, I salute the hell out of you. Thank you. And all the teachers. You know what? Somebody send me an email, vidinsori@gmail.com. I don't know. Is there some sort of charity, whatever, for teachers? Is there any sort of, is there a GoFundMe or anything for these kids and their families? Funerals are really expensive. Somebody send me an email, vidinsori@gmail.com. If we can help as a community, we'll do that. All right. Take care of yourselves, guys. Watch out for each other. Watch each other's backs. Don't be paranoid, but be vigilant. Watch each other's back and love each other, huh? Fucking buy somebody that drink at Starbucks. I'm going to tell you guys one last thing. I'm out of here. I had a family member that took their own life. So I'm venting to my friend about this family member. He said, bro, when the divorce happened to me, he got his little 9mm and he loaded it up and he's like, yo, I'm going to do it today. And then he said to himself, he wanted a beer, to get a little tipsy before he did the deed. And he told God, if you show me somehow that you love me, I won't do it. So, but if I get back to my car from the store, I'm going to drive to the bridge. I'm going to do it. So he gets in there, little bodega, buys this little thing. He's in line. He gets his tap at the back of his shoulder. He turns around. This little lady says to him, I want you to know that God loves you. He didn't say a word to her. He smirked at her and he turned around and he left. This woman had no idea. She just saved his life. She had no idea. I said, B, would you really have done that, bro? He's like, I'm dead ass serious. I would have done it. So what I'm saying is, your one random weird anonymous act of kindness might save a life or 20 lives. So let's just try to be as good to each other as we possibly can. Try to be good to a stranger if you possibly can. Because this is where we're at. Okay? Take care of yourselves, guys. And please, I'm serious. River, Sadie, one of you, find me some sort of charity organization or something so we can do something for these families instead of sitting here crying and doing nothing. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm if you're new to the channel, it usually doesn't go like this. I'm usually pretty buttoned up. I'm usually have a lot of facts for you to look at and things like that. So I'll be better in the future. I'll be better in the future for y'all. All right. Much love to everybody. There's a My email is vincensori@gmail.com, vincensori@gmail.com. Send me the links to that stuff, and we'll all do something together for those people. Later, guys. Peace to everybody. Love all you guys. Yeah, I love all you guys. And stay safe, huh? Meantime, love your neighbor, take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys.